Hi, I'm Carina Lesson with the Kendrick Law Group Family Division, and here with me today I have Susan Wozena, a business valuation analyst, a forensic accountant, a CPA, and a collaboratively trained financial neutral. Good morning, Susan. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for being with us today. I'm trying to bring some interesting content to our viewers. And today I would love to talk to you a little bit about your work with business valuations in the context of a divorce. Um, if you haven't heard, we're in a pandemic.
I heard
And
that somewhere. I just heard that this morning. So I'm glad you told me.
yes, and with that, I think a lot of business owners have been seeing some of that impact. So, wanted to pick your brains a little bit today and get some insight from you on what you're seeing out there as far as business valuations during this time.
Well, this pandemic has caused a lot of havoc on business valuations. There's just so much uncertainty. Whether you're doing a valuation that's dated prior to the pandemic and you're in the process of actually doing the valuation now, or if somebody's going to get divorced and the divorce date is July 31st, you're looking at something on July 31st, and that's right in the middle of it. So it has caused a lot of changes to how we approach doing the business valuation.
So, let's talk a little bit about the differences in approach. If you can, share with us a distinction between what you might be looking at today in evaluating a business versus something that you might have done 6 months ago, let's say.
Okay. Well, you always look at the past. You always look at the past 5 years, and you look at cash flow, and you look at how the cash flow has evolved, and then you project the cash flow going forward, which you can still do, but right now it's so out of whack. Who knows how the cash flow is going to go if your business was impacted? Some businesses were not. Some did very well with the pandemic if they had
Right,
a
right.
certain business. So that's
Sure.
even a whole nother story. So you're still going to look at the past, but you can't rely on it as much because you don't know what the future is going to hold. And I have a feeling it's going to take a long time before that uncertainty unwinds, honestly. So, I think we have to look at is certain industries, restaurants, very impacted.
Right.
We've got some dental offices and some doctors' offices. They were doing everything by video. Dental offices were closed down here in Florida. So even just small businesses like that, you have to look at, okay, now that they're open, are they open at the same volume? I doubt it. Restaurants can't even be at the same volume. So there's all these things that have to be taken into consideration, either discounts um, or just maybe put in some clauses saying, hey, here's how this looks now. We may want to revisit this. So there's going to be a lot of evaluation going in how they think things are going to go. I think the economy is going to come back. It's just taking longer because the cases keep going up. But how soon? For what industries? So I think those are all things that are going to have to be taken into account, and maybe take a little bit more of a collaborative approach to say, hey, here's what we're coming up with. What are you coming up with yours? And see if you can agree on that.
Well, I think that's a great point that you make. And, what I'm hearing from you is that the typical predictors that you would look at for future revenue stream and valuation of a business are just, they're not really there right now. And so that is causing some adjustments that need to be made. But I think that's a great point that you just made about considering the collaborative law process for a dissolution of marriage or other family law matters that they're dealing with having to get a business valuation as part of their divorce. Reminds me of the extremely successful collaborative case that we were on the collaborative divorce team
Mm-hmm.
together last year. And while that was not during a pandemic, um, I think it's even more important for folks to consider that as an option, as a divorce option during a pandemic because of the restrictions to access to the courthouse and the backlog that the courthouses are going to be seeing for some time.
Absolutely.
I think that we got done with our collaborative case, which was not it wasn't a simple divorce. There were some complicated issues, including a business valuation. I think we completed that case in around 90 days or so, Susan, didn't we?
It was 90 days, I think, at the most. It was a very quick case, and they had a successful business.
They did, and there were
Yeah.
also minor children involved, and there were
Hmm.
some significant equitable distribution issues. But
Hmm.
I think circling back to what you said and using that collaborative approach, certainly during the pandemic, when we're dealing with these uncertain issues with business valuations, I think that is the perfect vehicle for people to come up with some creative solutions, perhaps contingency based, if this, then that, that would really help support a family going through this process during the pandemic.
I agree. I think this is such an unprecedented and um, territory that nobody's been in before. So I would hope that the two parties, because each party is going to get their own valuation done, and the person that owns the business, their valuation is going to come in really low, and the person who's trying to get bought out or get a share of that, that has nothing to do with the business really, they want it super high, which is always the case. But I'm hoping that with these strange times, that at least they can maybe get the two valuators together and go, man, how do you see this? What are you going to do to make adjustments? They're still going to come out different, but I'm hoping that that helps, because this is very strange. And again, it may be a couple years before we see the actual impact of how all this stuff plays out. And I can't see somebody waiting 2 years to get divorced. You never know, I guess, but waiting 2 years and say, well, let's just wait a couple years and see how the business comes out. I don't see that happening. Things are still going to have to keep moving forward, but I do believe it's definitely going to be different. And there's a lot more questions you have to ask. You have to ask if the company got a PPP loan. Um, those loans were very prevalent. I have a lot of clients that got PPP loans. Why'd they get
Right,
it?
right.
Did they get it because their revenues went down? Did they get it because they were afraid their revenues were going to go down? Did they get it and it basically kept them from closing for good? I've had all of those cases. And then you look at that and say, well, that helped your cash flow. It's not going to help in the future. How do we adjust for that? So there's a lot of questions
a,
there.
a lot of questions, a lot of specificity and some nuances that, we have not really had to deal with. And certainly within the context of those implications on a divorce. And I was just about to ask you, of the timing of all of this, if people were thinking they're on the fence and they haven't filed yet, should I wait? That you just spoke to, I think people want to know that they can go forward if that's what they've decided to do. But certainly they should have a conversation and get the information to see what their options are. So getting educated and getting informed is the first step in figuring out what plan you're going to take and how to go about it. Any
Absolutely.
other things that we should be looking for in the business valuation world?
It's looking at how these business owners think their company is going to do. Some are thinking, okay, I got the loan, I got through that, I'm going to be okay now. Some are still thinking, well, I got that loan and I'm still underwater, or I'm still in some serious trouble. So it's going to take a lot of soul searching, and a lot of um, projections to see what they think is going to happen in the future. And back to the timing and all that, if a couple's getting divorced, can they wait? Maybe, maybe not. And I think the collaborative way, the collaborative process would be a huge benefit to these guys, because we talked about that. You could put some contingency plans in there. And also with the financial neutral, usually you would only have one valuation done and they're financial neutral. They weren't hired by either party. So they could kind of do it more, it's based on being neutral. So they can do that. And I think that might help a lot of couples if they do think, yeah, I want to get divorced now, but we can go ahead and do it collaboratively. And I think it may make things a little bit easier.
Well, and just to add to that point and emphasize what you're saying, let's contrast that to what a judge would do in the courtroom. And
Yes.
it is in stark contrast to the collaborative process, where the parties can come up together with a number that they can really live with, on the valuation side. And in the courtroom, a judge is going to have the competing experts. They're going to have two different
Hmm.
valuations. Maybe one is high, maybe one is low. It's going to make one of the parties happy. And the judge is really obligated to pick one of those valuations. They're not going to come up with something in the middle or some average
Yeah.
of the two. they're really restricted to selecting one of those values.
Yeah.
Whereas in the collaborative process, we have more flexibility, we have more creativity, and we certainly have more options that can go on the table
Yeah, we
for a
can all work
family.
together to decide which value we like. And
Right,
again, a lot of times you only have one. But these judges, they're going to have as many questions as we do because they haven't had to deal with it either, and they're going to think, you know, what the heck, which one is right?
right.
Um,
I
and
think there's a lot more
and
opportunity.
it's going to be touchy for a while for the valuators, for the attorneys, for the judges, everybody, because
Right.
so many unknowns.
Right, right. Well, we're going to have to keep our eye on all of these developments, and I know you're going to be very busy trying to
I
figure
am.
all of this stuff out, and value some of these businesses, which are unfortunately some are really struggling and have taken a really big hit. And we certainly hope that the economy comes back and business goes back up as well. Susan, I want to
Absolutely.
thank you so much for your time today and for giving us some important insight into business valuations and what's happening during this pandemic. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to reach you if they need a business valuation or accounting work or a collaborative consultation as a financial neutral?
Well, my website is www.synergistvaluations.com. And my email is susan@synergistvaluations.com. But thanks for having me. This is very informative, and I think a lot of people can benefit from these conversations you're having with different experts in different areas.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan. And hopefully we'll have another collaborative case together soon.
I hope so.
All right. Take care and be
Thanks.
safe.
You too. Bye bye.